Hello, and welcome to Booming at the Top of the Hill, a podcast for baby boomers who are the babies of the baby boom generation. Welcome to another web episode of Booming at the Top of the Hill, where we're going to talk about smartphones, tablets, laptops, and desktops, and what you might need. Thank you for coming back, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. We're going to look at price, processing power, memory, storage, portability, problems of having large finger availability, software availability, as well as screen size. I'm sure that you must have heard the saying that today's cell phones have more computing power than the Apollo astronauts had in going to the moon and back. And they are very capable of doing certain kinds of things. Prices can be fairly reasonable. You can either get one free with some kind of subscription with one of the cell phone providers or cellular providers, but you can actually go up to $1,000 plus, or if you get specialty phones, you can go up to even $6,000 to $7,000. The processing power, of course, varies by cost. The less expensive tend to be slower than the more expensive. Memory is expandable up to about 256 gigabytes, depending upon the system. And you have to be careful because some cell phones have fixed amounts of memory and memory can't be added, where other cell phones may allow you to do some addition of memory, but not to the core memory or the basic operating memory of the phone. Similarly with storage, where you can store, how much you can store, may be controlled by the phone and the provider. Ultimately, smartphones are portable, and that's the big deal, is you can use them anywhere. I do banking from the Grand Canyon, or I can do banking from pretty much anywhere that I am, because that's one of the apps that I have. One of the issues, though, that I have, and others might have, is large fingers and small keyboard, in that I quite frequently get my passcode incorrect because my fingers are on multiple keys. Cell phones have touch screens, and so it's push to start kind of things for your programs. Now, programs on the smartphone are called applications, and most of these aren't full versions of Microsoft Word or Excel or something that you might have on a regular computer. They are programs, they're called apps, and the apps have limitations based on the limitations of the phone you have. Screen size usually varies, but most of the time the screen size is relatively small, and that can make it hard to watch things like YouTube videos or movies or things like that. Oddly enough, as long as your eyesight's pretty good, you can kind of get used to the smaller screen. If we go to something a little bit bigger, we have the tablets. Tablets are usually somewhere around $300 to, if you get one with huge amounts of memories, it can be over $1,000. And again, processing power is going to vary by cost. Memory on these devices can be fixed. Usually, if you look at something like the iPad, you get whatever it has when you buy it. There are some adapters for USB connections, which allow you to do some external storage of files, but that doesn't give you more memory to operate with. Again, portable, but unless you happen that has a cell phone connection out of their programs and onto the internet. You can, in terms of keyboards, buy a Bluetooth keyboard, an external keyboard that wirelessly connects the computer, the Bluetooth type, can easily be used. Again, not programs, again, smaller versions of things that you may need more computing power than they may be able to provide, unless you're willing to pay a pretty penny for some of the software. Screen sizes are somewhere between 7 inches for the smaller ones to 11 inches for the larger screens, which make them very, very good for videos and things like that. If you want an actual computer, you typically would go to a laptop computer. And these can vary between $210 for a very inexpensive tablet-like laptop computer with the built-in keyboard, up to I had a laptop computer once that cost almost $7,000 because it needed to have specialty software running on it, which required a much better, a more capable system for me. Memory is whatever you can upgrade it to. Usually it's, you can go 32 gigabytes, 64, 256, 512. And if you want to do it as an internal storage, you can even go to a terabyte in terms of storage devices, and you can either have the solid state devices, SSDs, which don't have any moving of hard drive. The keyboards that come with these, if you buy really inexpensive ones, sometimes the keyboard is not very good quality, and that can be an issue typed having to show up. Most of the laptop computers have a touch screen or a mouse, or you can attach a mouse as a USB connection so that you have the mouse externally. They all kind of area. Some computers, laptops, may have a touch screen, but that's going to vary by the kind of one that you buy. Software availability is very extensive, but at cost, unless you want to go for something like shareware or freeware, which I'm going to talk about in another episode. Some of these laptop computers are operating, have an iOS, although you could run Windows technically on that. If you have a Windows kind of system, it's usually Microsoft, but it could be someone else's operating system, and that can have an effect on how your programs actually run. Going to what you're probably most familiar with are the desktop computers, and these can vary in price. The general thing about processors are the faster you do this varies by cost. You can get a 4 gigabyte RAM, gigabytes, 32 gigabytes, 64 gigabytes, 256, something like that. Storage depends on how many things you want to add. I have about 11 terabytes of storage on my system with about 5 external hard drives. Most computers are going to allow you to operate with a mouse or a trackball. Some of them will allow for touch, but those are quite often the ones that have the computers built into the monitor, and so there's sort of a limited ability to be able to get to things. And so whereas you would have an external kind of a mouse or something like that, you can touch the screen on those systems. Software availability is the same as with the laptops. Extensive software out there, a lot of freeware, shareware kind of stuff out there, but there are a lot of programs, professional programs, if you need it for your business, and those can cost that. If you buy a computer that has a monitor that comes with it, tends to be a little on the small side. You can get 8-inch, you can get 27-inch. I actually took 2 smaller monitors, and I just bought a television, an HD TV 40-inch one. So now I have a 40-inch monitor that I work with. Here's the full comparison of all of the different kinds of computers and phones and tablets and laptops and whatever you might be interested in. Basically, I think the deciding factor is how much do you want to work with, how much do you want to deal with. For some people, any of these is going to be too much. For others, maybe a cell phone and its applications are going to work with you. Maybe a tablet or iPad if you want to Skype your grandchildren or children or just friends, and it'd be completely adequate for that. If you want to do some actual computing, if you want to monitor your retirement savings, maybe decide to write that novel in the 3rd chapter of your life or something like that, then you're really going to want a laptop or a desktop. I'm going to talk in another episode about freeware and shareware. These are for the laptop, desktop computers, and they're free to download. They work like a more expensive piece of software, but they're not that software, and so there's going to be some differences within those, but we'll get to those at a later time. Thank you for watching Booming at the Top of the Hill, and be sure to tune in for the next web episode. Thank you. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Booming at the Top of the Hill, and I'll talk to you again next time. Thank you.